Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to import some data before we move on to, well, I suppose I shouldn't say the last thing. We're going to import data, and then we're going to create a dashboard that gives us a little bit more of insight. So can't necessarily see it, but the last thing I have on my tab is the dashboards. So we've got the database. What are we ultimately building? How are we structuring the data? Do we have data that we're going to be bringing into the system? And once it's in the system, what are some of the things that we want to make sure get built into it so that we can curate data in a way that is meaningful as well as also very visually pleasing as well. So the thing that we're going to build is going to be the leaderboard, or so every employee that logs in, if they want to take a look at the wellness program, they can see that. All right, enough talk. So as a rule of thumb, when we are working with data, if we've got formulas in here, we have to get rid of them. So just as a simple rule of thumb, it always is a very good practice to copy any data that has formulas in it and paste it into a format that is more data friendly. So here I've just got the values. I simply copied everything from that other spreadsheet into one called the corporate wellness activity import, where it is literally just data. So these are all the things that I want to import. Now, it's going to make my life a lot easier if these things, these columns within my import, match exactly what is on a wellness activity. So if I go to wellness activity, and let's just pretend that I'm going to create a new one here. I've got employee wellness program. Here I've got employee wellness program. Oh, activity date. Okay, duration. I'm going to leave this without the MIN in parentheses just to let you see what that's like. And here I've got activity type, singular, and distance in mile. Okay, so I should expect that all of these should be easily imported directly into the system, except duration, because it's missing something in parentheses. Okay, so save that. And we will go to, let's see, can I get to it from here? No, I didn't think so. So now if we want to import data, it's actually pretty easy. Again, we go to the cogwheel, which is where we went to start building our application within the application hub, and click on data import. And what are we importing? We are importing wellness activities. Okay, so select that. And now we're going to select our file. Where is that saved? Let's cheat a little bit, shall we? Let's save copy. It is marketing, publisher. Oh wow, you guys are going to get to see the example of my very OCD filing structure. Publisher use case examples, Creatio, corporate wellness activity import. Boom. Okay, and if everything is good, all the formulas are gone, all the formatting's gone, I will see what you see on the screen here. It's just an Excel item and successful indication that it's good to go, proceeding to the next step. So I am importing this data to this object within the system, and now I get to do my data mapping. And as expected, everything mapped automatically. These green little checkboxes indicate that there was a one-to-one match between what is on the spreadsheet and what is in Creatio. So here's the Excel. So everything left of the little icon is what was detected within the spreadsheet, and everything from the icon to the right is what we see in Creatio. So everything mapped correctly, activity name to activity name, employee to employee, so on and so forth. But this should be duration. So that to that, click next. And if there are any duplicates, how is this import going to make a determination whether or not it should add it? So if there are exact matches in any of these columns, make sure that the do not get imported because they are a duplicate. Okay, so we're just going to leave activity name, and I know that there's not going to be any duplicates because the formula that I used to create it wouldn't allow it. So with that, let's go ahead and start the data import. It'll give us a indication. It'll let us know here 53 records were imported, which was exactly how many was on my spreadsheet, which I can see here to 55, so 53, and I've got 2 spaces in between, so that's 53. So that imported correctly. Okay, so now if I go back to my corporate wellness program and work from home wellness, oh, look at that. There's a bunch of stuff up here now. And if I actually zoom out a little bit, you can actually see how this would look on a normal monitor. So we can see 2 employees are participating. We can see that those employees have logged a cumulative total of 1,718 minutes and a total distance of 131.87 miles. Okay, and here is all of the wellness activities. So I can scroll through the list here if I wanted to. If I wanted to add a new wellness activity, I could use the plus sign to do so. If I wanted to take a closer look at the duration, click on that and see who did what, when they did it, what day they did it. Everything that we had already set up, which is neat. So we can easily see everything that's been logged within the system. All right, now we're almost done. The last thing we want to do is create a nice little landing page and get this off the screen here that shows us some additional data. So we are going to click the gear icon again, and we've worked in data imports. We've created our application. Now we're going to set up appearance. Now the name is a little bit deceptive, but setup appearance allows us to customize our Creatio desktop experience. So there are a number of icons that are available, background images rather, that we can switch to. So if you're a fan of Paramount Pictures, there you go. You can do that. And as far as the desktop, we're going to add a new one. And we are going to be given a completely blank slate. A little bit less intuitive than the page builder, but same concepts here. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this corporate wellness. And I'm a fan of this. So if you start dragging it onto the screen, you'll start to see that you've got a place to put it. And you can manipulate it. If you scroll all the way down, you can see just how much real estate you've got. So we might be limited from left to right, but as far as what we see here, it is pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've got a spline chart, which is going to allow us to have multiple lines on the chart. This looks really good when we're looking at multiple subsets of data overlaying with the same type of information. So this is going to be what I envision to be activities, how much time was invested on a given activity, which date, things of that nature. So if we start setting up the chart, we can actually give this activities, if I can spell, wellness activities. There we go. Fully colored. We're going to look at the wellness activity object, and we're going to sum the column. On this one, we'll do duration. And we're going to look at a grouping by the activity date. And we're going to look at it in, why not, day, month, year. So here is every single activity, total wellness minutes logged. It doesn't matter what the activity is. We've got numbers. Great. That's all well and good. Now, some things are a little bit set up for us already, but what if I wanted a different line for each type of activity? Well, we can definitely do that. So if we add a condition where the activity type is equal to, let's do running. Okay, so this is all of the activity that was logged that was running. It doesn't matter if it was indoor or outdoor. Okay, and we're actually going to call this series running. Okay, there's that. Oops. And let's see, let's make this one red. People redline when they run, so that makes perfect sense to me. All right, now we want more lines because whenever we didn't have the activity type here, we had quite a bit of info. But if we put this filter back on, we've got running specifically and what day people logged running activities. Cool. Now, if that was all that we wanted to do, that was all well and good, but we want more. So I did save it. I'm going to go back into it and show you that it's really easy to now add additional items to this. So we've created one series that did everything that we wanted. Now, if we wanted the exact same type of series, but maybe a different activity type, we have the ability to copy a series. Let's do a different color. Let's do something that really stands out against it. And we're going to call this cycling. And we're going to change our activity types from running outdoor to cycling. And there's our cycling activity. Okay. And why not? We've got one more series. I know Liz does a lot of walking. So if we copy that, change this to walking, and let's make this stand out. Let's do dark green. Change the type to walking. There's all of our walking. You can see she's a pretty consistent walker. I didn't necessarily add much to it except on a few of these days. And then we've got one last series, which is weightlifting. Weightlifting. And let's have it stand out. Change this to weightlifting. And now we've got weightlifting. A little bit harder to see it in there, and this is where you can play around with the colors, make sure it stands out. And as we're hovering over this now with all of our manipulation that we've done with our series, we can definitely do that. And if we wanted to really add one more, we can do all of the activity types and set this to be light green. It looks a little bit interesting, but it allows you to now see the difference in the lines. So we've got blue mostly hugging the bottom, so maybe it makes sense to keep blue on the top. So here we can see where someone did nothing but total exercise, total duration. There we go. Or actually, no. This is really silly that I'm struggling with what to title it, but the obvious answer is all exercises. So if we look at the cumulative wellness activity duration, we can see how it splits out. So all exercise is 93 minutes. Of those 93 minutes, 30 were walking, 63 were running. Now this is just to give you an idea of the type of chart that you can create. So here's that. Cool. So there's one. Let's do another metric. This is 4, so let's make it maybe like that. And let's set up a gauge chart as well. And then that's going to round it out. Okay, so let's set up our gauge here. So let's do total distance miles. Okay, fully colored. We're going to look at wellness activity again, and we're going to sum the distance, and our scale is going to be 0 to 100, maybe 150 and 200, and we can say the more the better. And now this is giving us the total distance that we have run. And maybe we don't want it green. Let's do red. Again, for red line, we can change the color here. Let's do red. Well, it's not really yellow per se, so we'll just go with that. And green. And oops, I didn't like that. 75, we'll do 100 and maybe 150. There we go. That looks pretty good, except perhaps the actual color. Let's go back to green. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, we'll save that. Now we've got our total distance. Might look a little bit strange. Maybe we give a little bit more room. Perfect. More room there, more room for that one because OCD. And let's do this last one, which will be total logged minutes. And we'll look again at the wellness activity. We're going to sum the duration in minutes. And we'll format this to where it says minutes. Oh, looks good. Do large. Total logged activity, or maybe total duration. You can really get lost in nomenclature if you're not careful. I'm a perfect example of that. So I like green. We'll leave them all green. That's how that's going to look. And if I click save now, it's going to commit this to the database. And while it looks a little bit scrunched on this screen here, if I close out of this and go here, get rid of the apps, let's refresh it. I didn't necessarily have to refresh it, but I'm just doing it for posterity. But here on the bottom, we had 4 dashboards that we were working with in the beginning. Now we have a 5th. And look at that, that looks good. Now, I do maybe want to change this a little bit. So let's give you an example of what it looks like to play around with the appearance a little bit more. So we'll leave that, we'll go back into corporate wellness. And this needs a little bit more height for sure. This one doesn't, but OCD yet again. We're going to change this to the new fancy appearance, and we're going to do the glass effect. And we're going to do that for all of it. Okay. So this is nice and fancy. Let's take that off. Okay. Save that. And waiting for this to save. I'll toggle over and jump right into our Creatio dashboard. And without having to refresh, I can see the updates in real time. Now, the fun thing is directly from this dashboard, if I wanted to take more an in-depth look at things like what about this day? I can display the data. Okay, well, on January 2nd, Liz walked 30 minutes and I ran on a treadmill for 66. We're crazy people apparently. But I can do that with every single data point. So here, let's take a look at this day. Maybe I want to play with the data and see it a different way. What does it look like from a scatter plot perspective? That's not really all that appealing. What about area? Ooh, that's kind of neat. I can see what it looks like, and it looks like something straight out of Dr. Seuss. All right, what about bar? Well, that's a lot of data points that scrunch together. About donut, we like donuts. This doesn't make a lot of sense either. Cool, clearly not the right way. Let's go back to maybe a line chart. This looks a little bit more realistic, not as fancy or modern, so we're going to revert back to what we had originally set up. Cool beans. Same thing applies for total distance. If I want to see who did what at distance, very similar to what we were looking at on our corporate wellness page across the board, but with a nice fancy wellness activity. So this is the end result of a total of 1 hour and 17 minutes worth of work. I would say easily 20 minutes of that was left to explaining what exactly it was I was doing and the why behind it. But this is the power of no code. I quite literally have a platform that I can build applications like this. I went from having no corporate wellness program to having one in about 1 hour. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So more examples to come, but I hope you found this very useful, and at the very least arms you with more information of how low code and no code systems can ultimately be leveraged to implement applications within your organization very seamlessly and very effortlessly without a single line of code. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.